Hello. I thought I would just make a quick car vid, and kind of just discussing some of the same themes that I've been talking about in my last couple of videos. Because it's stuff that, again, in the LOA community, especially if you're relatively new to the law of attraction and you try to find out about it on places like YouTube or Reddit or, popular social media avenues, Instagram, you're going to hear a lot of stuff that just is completely unrealistic for most people. Again, I make the disclaimer I always make: you can be the exception. For every 100 people who try to do this stuff, there's always a handful of people that are successfully able to implement a technique and get the law of attraction to work dramatically well for them quickly. But when you're new to this stuff, the large majority of people are going to fail in applying it the way that they want to apply it quickly. You have to persist and keep going in order to benefit greatly and change your life utilizing these principles. Usually, not always, but usually. And even if you've had some success early on, you're still going to run into plenty of failures in the future. That's all but guaranteed. And moving through those perceived failures till you recognize them as actually stepping stones to larger successes is such a huge part of the process. Again, this might not apply to everybody, but if you're listening or watching this channel, it likely applies to you. Okay? It certainly applies to me. It's nothing to be ashamed about. The people that I've seen in my life, and the teachers I've, read, or coaches I've had that have been the most successful, all talk about failing a lot. The people that just talk about success, usually those are not the good teachers, not the right people to learn from. And a lot of times, to be frank, they're full of shit, So embrace the perceived failure. And one really good way of doing that is to have a big picture take on this whole thing, and to become clear about what you really want, what's most important in your life. The big things, Again, this isn't about manifesting a cup of coffee. This is about changing your life for the better long term. I was speaking yesterday about the 7-day mental diet and how that's a really effective way to quickly see change in your world. But again, generally speaking, this is more about looking at yourself and observing yourself and getting a handle on yourself long term. And that takes work. So the book I wanted to mention today is The Success System That Never Fails by W. Clement Stone. W. Clement Stone, we've talked about him in the podcast before. And I mentioned, another fast manifesting technique. If you want to change your life, if you want to see change quickly, not as fast as the 7-day mental diet, which is like a week, right? Or usually less to start really noticing changes in your life, at least inwardly. But another really quick way to do this is the success indicator of W. Clement Stone. W. Clement Stone, master teacher, master businessman, master philanthropist. His success indicator is really one of the best manifesting, quote unquote, techniques I've found that has worked well for me personally and has worked well for thousands of other people. I made a somewhat longer video about the success indicator, how you can easily implement it. I will link to it up above or below. The success indicator, if you do that, if you spend a half an hour on a success indicator every day for a month straight, you will see shifts in your life, all but guaranteed. Like the 7-day mental diet, it's not easy. It requires a commitment from you. It requires serious self-inquiry. But if you do it, you will recognize and see shifts in your life because, Stone says we have a much easier time being honest with other people than we do being honest with ourselves. It's hard for us to somewhat objectively judge our behavior unless we are rather regularly monitoring it. And the way to regularly monitor it effectively, Stone says, and I agree with him, is to have some kind of success indicator. And to actually, objectively, to the best of our abilities, judge our behavior each day and then refocus it towards our long-term goals, what we really want. And when we do that, we see change in our life. And one thing that Stone talks about that pertains to this, but also pertains to this bigger picture, getting what you want long term and getting more of what you want into your life and feeling better and better about your life and helping more and more people long term. One thing that Stone says that really hits home for me, and I know has hit home for so many other people, is something that I think he actually got originally from Napoleon Hill. Stone, wrote the book, the Positive Mental Attitude book with Napoleon Hill. If you're familiar with my stuff, I'm not a big fan of Napoleon Hill. I think that W. Clement Stone is more of the real deal than Napoleon Hill. But anyway, Napoleon Hill said something along these lines, and then Stone expands upon it in this book, The Success System That Never Fails. Stone writes, "Every disadvantage has an equivalent advantage if you'll take the trouble to find it. Learn how to do that, and you'll kick the stuffing out of adversity every time." So this is again why Stone was such a proponent of having a success indicator. Because when you are doing daily self-monitoring, you notice things about yourself and think of things, not just logically, but imaginatively. Use your imagination to think of advantages that previously seemed to be disadvantages. And you see that things that you perceived initially logically to be failures, with more meditation and relaxed imaginal, contemplation, you realize that these perceived failures actually were stepping stones for huge future success. So let me read this quote one more time. "Every disadvantage has an equivalent advantage if you'll take the trouble to find it. Learn how to do that, and you'll kick the stuffing out of adversity every time." So this is about contemplation, daily observation of our behavior, and also patience. This is the real law of attraction stuff, not fancy techniques. It's just applying these principles, into our life fully each day in whatever way, we find best. And Stone's advice is one way of doing it very, very effectively. So I hope this was helpful.